Thank you very much, Joe. Taoiseach, Chairman, distinguished guests and friends. It's my great pleasure to be here in Glentees tonight. It's my first time in Glentees, not my first time in Donegal, because I was up to Killybegs a few months ago, but it's my first time here. I'm really delighted to be here for this wonderful occasion. I was wondering why I was invited to open the school. Perhaps it was to celebrate the 220th anniversary of the landing of General Humbert in County Mayo in 1798. Or perhaps it was to celebrate the fact that France, before the next summer school, will be Ireland's closest neighbour in the EU. So what I'll try to do in just a few minutes, because I've realized that everybody's waiting for the Taoiseach and his Hume lecture, I'll just try in a few minutes to say where we stand, where we as France stand on Brexit, where we feel that Europe should go, and where do we stand in terms of the Franco-Irish relations. So bear with me for a few minutes. Brexit first. Ireland's unique position regarding Brexit was immediately recognized and underlined by France. And one thing I have to say about Brexit is it concerns us as well, France, because you may know that we have the biggest trade surplus with the UK. In fact, it's 12 billion euros in surplus. It's more than the actual total trade between France and Ireland. So it is a big issue for us, and we really want Brexit to work and to have the best possible relation with the UK when they leave the European Union. Unfortunately, things are a little bit complicated, as you know, and we are currently very pleased with the proposal of the backstop that Michel Barnier has offered. We think it's a credible solution to the Northern Irish and to the border issue. Just in a few words, what is it trying to achieve? It's trying to avoid custom checks. It would maintain Northern Ireland in the EU customs union, like another country, which is Monaco. It's the only other territory that is in that situation. It seeks to avoid regulatory controls, and that entails partial regulatory alignment of Northern Ireland on single market rules. And it also seeks to guarantee fair competition, which would entail that EU rules for state aids, environment governance will be maintained. So we would have a common regulatory area, making it possible for the absence of a physical frontier. We see it as both a minimalist and a maximalist proposal. It's minimalist in the sense that it's the minimum necessary to avoid a physical frontier, and it's also a maximalist one because never before has a third country been offered such a deal. It is in any case an ad hoc solution which cannot serve as a model for future relations of the UK with the EU. Now, what has been the UK's response? You've all seen the Chequers proposal and the details that were provided with the white paper. What do we think about those proposals? Well, first of all, we're pleased that the UK has come up with a proposal. However, we do have reservations, and those reservations were made very clear in the General Affairs Council on Friday by my minister about the respect of the principles that we have set ourselves concerning the integrity of the internal market and the customs union, concerning the balance between rights and obligation, or the decision-making autonomy of the union, or the indivisibility of the four freedoms. So there are a lot of questions that need to be addressed and which we feel have not been sufficiently addressed by the UK in this proposal. Also, is the facilitated customs arrangement in fact workable? And we also have reservations about the workability of this proposal. So as far as France is concerned, the backstop solution as proposed by the EU is the only viable solution. To cast doubt on this point is to cast doubt on the future of the withdrawal agreement and the transition period. So this should lead us, and that's my final point on Brexit. Unfortunately, it's a not very positive one, but it should lead us more than ever to prepare ourselves for the hypothesis of a lack of agreement, as the European Council has underlined. The Commission issued a communication on the 19th of July to this effect, and France is getting ready for all eventualities, including no deal. And one concrete example of that is that we are proceeding with a recruitment of 700 customs officers. Now, Brexit isn't everything, and there are many issues that are fundamental to the future of the EU. Brexit is not on top of the agenda in France. There are many other issues, which I will detail. You'd be hard-pressed to see front-page news on Brexit. It is in the news, but it's not what comes to mind in the population. What comes to mind? There are 7 issues I would like to point out very quickly. First of all, migration. Spain, Italy, France, and Greece represent these 4 countries represent 75% of asylum seekers. So for us, it's a huge issue, which was addressed to some extent in the last European Council with some very concrete proposals on disembarkation platforms, on control centers, but it's something that needs to be continue to be addressed. And President Macron made several proposals to that effect to try and increase the responsibility and the solidarity, and to make sure that the 3 pillars of our policy is well addressed: increased cooperations with countries of origin and transit, reinforced management of the external border, and greater solidarity in the Union. The second issue is defense and security. And here we have seen much progress done in the European Union. Remember, last December we launched PESCO. We also, under the initiative of President Macron, started the European Intervention Initiative, to which Ireland is not party, but Ireland is party to PESCO, and for us it's a very good sign that you have decided to join this initiative, so that we perhaps, as early as 2019, should I say, we will finance the first capability projects. The third issue is the reform of governance and the Eurozone. Here again, we have made proposals, we have called for a Eurozone budget by 2021 for competitivity, convergence, stabilization, which would fund new investments in innovation and human capital, and we feel we should beef up the European stability mechanism. The fourth issue is the digital agenda. We're becoming Europe the only geographical area in the world where we promote innovation and disruptive innovation, and simultaneously provide ourselves with the tools to protect individual freedoms. So that's where my president has proposed an agency for breakthrough innovation, jointly funding new fields of research such as artificial intelligence. And of course, there's a small matter in the digital agenda of the taxation of digital companies, where, as you know, France and Ireland don't completely see eye to eye, but I hope by the end of my term here, we will have sorted that problem. The next issue is climate change. Climate change, as you know, 2015, the Paris Agreement, we're not on track to meeting the goals of the Paris Agreement and the requirements of it. The European Union has been at the forefront of the fight against climate change, and we feel it should still be a leader in that fight. That's why many proposals have been made for a fair price of carbon, at least 25 to 30 euros a ton, electric interconnections, a European border carbon tax, and also we advocate with Germany carbon neutrality for the EU by 2050. The sixth issue is the multilateral framework, financial framework, which will be decided for 2021-2027. Here we have lots to share with Ireland, particularly the common agricultural policy. We feel it should be robust. So we also advocate for cohesion funds. We feel the budget could be made bigger if it's worth it, and we really see eye to eye in that respect. And then the final issue is the upcoming European elections of 2019. And this is hugely important because it will be in this area of populism and the rise of populism in Europe, a very important time for the citizens to express their voice and see how they want Europe to develop. And we were very interested in France in Ireland's experiment with the citizens' consultations that took place so successfully, and which we now are undertaking ourselves in France at the moment. So is there ground for hope? Well, I think there is ground for hope. The relationship with Germany is very good at the moment. We published a paper called the Messeberg Declaration, where we present a lot of ideas in common on migration, on the European Asylum Office, on the Eurozone budget, on transnational lists, and we're very happy to know that the Taoiseach was also interested in proposing transnational list for European elections. So there is, I think, the willingness to reform the EU in a positive way. So where does this all leave us, the Franco-Irish relation, in this context? Well, I would say it's a thriving relation in many respects. First of all, just see how many ministers we had come over to Ireland in recent weeks and months. We had our Minister of Foreign Affairs, our Minister for European Affairs, our Minister of Agriculture was here early July, and some 14 parliamentarians came a couple of weeks ago to not only to Dublin but also to the border to see for themselves that there was nothing to see, and went up to Belfast to get a better sense of what Brexit really means for the people living around the frontier. It's also economic links. I mentioned 10 billion euros in trade in goods, but 20 billion in trade overall, in goods and services. It's tourism. 600,000 French people go to Ireland and 600,000 Irish people go to France every year. It's a sizable amount. Technology, with many French startups in Ireland and a vibrant Dublin French tech community. The cultural links, remember the Alliance Française in Dublin is the third largest in Europe after Paris and Brussels. So if you need to brush up on your French, you know where to go. We do have a few differences. I mentioned digital taxation and the corporate tax issue, which must not be overlooked. It's a really important issue that needs to be addressed. And I'm glad that you very cleverly, Joe, put that on the agenda for this year's summer school. But we do have very strong convergences: the CAP, transnational list, the partnership with Africa, the increase of budget, many things that make us stronger together. And becoming the closest neighbors opens up new opportunities for our bilateral relations, and I will, to finish up, mention two of those. First of all, the Maritime Links. There are already many routes linking our two countries, but in recent months there have been calls to intensify these routes, and some of them have already been intensified. The Cork-Roscoff route with Brittany Ferries, the Dublin-Cherbourg route later this summer, boats that will multiply the freight capacity tenfold. All this, of course, to try and deal with the land bridge that Ireland uses so much at the moment, and which maybe will not be the case in future years. And next week, there's an important meeting in fact, this Thursday, between French and Irish port authorities who will gather in Dublin to examine possible new routes. And my final example will be on the very important energy project that will connect our two countries with an electric cable, 500 kilometers underwater, which will link Cork, Ireland and Brittany from Cork to Brest by 2026. It's a major undertaking. It's a €1 billion project. It will provide electricity to 450,000 homes in Ireland. It will boost the development of renewable energy in Ireland. It's the Celtic interconnector, which will be Ireland's physical link to the continent. So many challenges, but also many opportunities, and I really look forward to these few days with this exciting program. And on that note, I declare officially the summer school, the 38th annual summer school, MacGill Summer School, open. Thank you very much.